Hello everyone, welcome to live session that is MRCOG part 2 January 2026 and has the exam pattern changed. This live session is basically a requested live session because everybody was like, I got through many questions about like this time paper was different, shall we study differently, what to follow. So there were a lot of questions around there, and that actually led me go to this session. Think about actually going for this particular session. So hello everyone and welcome. Good evening, and it's good to have you all here on the Saturday evening. So we are going to actually objectively mark this, right? I have created a 10 points rubric. Of course, we'll be solving some of the recalls as well from January 2026 to actually objectively see. See, we all are in with the evidence-based medicine, right? We all want to practice evidence-based medicine. So today in this webinar, we are going to see evidence-based, has the pattern actually changed or not? And you all will be marking this. So about what is the current thing going on. So let's start this webinar. In next 25 to 30 minutes, we are going to just objectively scale this out. And of course, till the end, you will find the question. So stay and keep watching and do keep chatting in the live chat to keep the session interactive as well. So what is the purpose of the session? As I said, I got many requests like, so January 26 felt more intense to the candidates. Is it so? What I think is like after every part 2 exam, always the candidates feel like, oh, something was there, something was difficult there, right? So what the intensity, the intense feeling which they get after attempting the exam, does that applicant really replicates into the pattern change, or it is just the feeling of depth which they are getting? We are going to see that. So today's goal is to objectively analyze the exam using 10 parameters. RCOG actually tests us using so many parameters. So why not just decipher this exam using the 10 parameters? That is the purpose of taking this particular session today here. So how does that sounds to you? Anybody you would like to write in the chat box? Do you feel this is interesting to do? Or just need to know the answers of the questions? What is more interesting? Let's interpret. Of course, we'll be going with the answers of the questions as well. But yes, what you are looking for. Something, I'm waiting for a few of your answers to come across so that we can just think over and go ahead with that. Yes, good evening. Yes. Hi. Yeah, good. So, are you looking for some important things? Yeah, okay. So, now let's move on further. So, how we will decide? Because you will have to mark the RCOG today. So, we are looking at 10 exam parameters. Each parameter you have to score as 0, 1, or 2, right? 0, 1, 2. 0 means it was same as before. 1 was, yes, it was same, but it was modified presentation, old wine in the new bottle. And 2 is, oh my God, this was a total pattern shift. And then we will then see what is the final cumulative interpretation, right? So yes, excellent idea and pattern and strategy. Yes, thank you so much. See, it is very important because now we are going to start for the next, right? We are starting for the next preparation. So this is the time actually when we have to strategize, like how to go about further to gain maximum out of this time. Because as with us, 90% students need to pass, more than 90%. Actually, my dream is to make any average gynecologist pass this exam in one go with 100% success rate, right? But it's by your all efforts and by our team's efforts, we are almost above 90% and looking to be having a great results on 11th too. So thank you so much for appreciating this. And then we are going to now, I would like each of one of you to score this, right? I'll be looking in the chat and then I will then put up the score, which is correct. So point one. What is there? Guidelines. Same guidelines, new features. What was asked? Were new guidelines asked more, or existing high yield guidelines tested more deeply? So my question is, were the new things which just came up from the first time, the new guideline, those questions were more, or the already existing guidelines which are there, they were tested there, but of course more deeply? What was the January 26 insight? Focus remained. As per the questions I have seen, I still believe that there were questions about the VTE thromboprophylaxis, which are usually there, always there in the exam. GBS prophylaxis was there, HIV was there, cancer staging was there. So are these the new guidelines, or they were just asked in a different way? What do you guys say? So focus remained on the existing guidelines and with more emphasis on application and not exactly about what one line is updated in the guideline. What do you say? Keeping this parameter in mind, how would you score this parameter? 0, 1, or 2? Yes, looking for most of the existing bit deeply. Yes, so I need a score 0, 1, or 2. 0 means it was same. 1, slightly. Yes, different kind of a presentation. And 2 is, oh my God, that was totally changed. So we just scale each parameter on the score of 0, 1, and 2. I want the answers not in the text. You can put up your comments, that's fine, but do score as well. 0, 1, 2, what you want to score here for this particular parameter? Yes, 1. Yeah, okay. Yes, any more? Yeah, okay. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay, I have got, I think majority of them are 1, right? So what it is, or we always read the VTE thromboprophylaxis, we have to read it. Still the topics remain the same. So is your course going to change? No, your course still remains the same, right? Your course still remains the same. So people ask that, are you going to change the videos, or are you going to change your pattern of teaching? No, I'm not going to change the pattern of teaching, because the same questions are coming and many of the students could answer this with so much depth, right? So much depth still they have answered. So all that depth is what is required, and that I'll just come later. How can you get that depth? And particularly with the kind of teaching we are doing, we are helping you focus only on a bit of the syllabus, which is repeatedly being asked in exam, giving you more time to concentrate in deep on those topics rather than spreading your knowledge over the time period. So it is basically, yes, if you have less content, how is this possible to gain this? If you have less content, then you can work repeatedly on it to gain the depth. So first and foremost learning point is, it is not about chasing every new update. Shall I read this? Shall I read that? Shall I do this? Shall I cover that? No, not at all. Same core guidelines will make you pass. Remember, just keep this in mind. Same those tables, same everything is going to make you pass. So what you have to do is just be thorough. So when your content is less, you can be thorough with that. So score goes from 0 to 1. Most of you have answered 1. So I kept it 0 to 1, but I'll go with you and I'll make it 1, right? Everybody okay? Satisfied? Anything else you want to say about this? Now, here is the one question. This is exactly from what I got to know about in the exam, it appeared. 26-year-old Primi Gravita presents to your labor ward in active labor at 39 plus 2 weeks gestation. She reports regular painful contractions for 6 hours. Her antenatal course was uncomplicated and she had not undergone any procedures for FGM. So basically, obstetric history is FGM3, diagnosed antenatally, no other comorbidities, spontaneous onset of labor. On examination, cervical dilatation is 5 to 6 centimeters, fetal heart rate is 140 beats per minute and is normal. Membranes are intact. Vulval inspection, severe infibulation with very narrow vaginal opening. You are responsible for the planning safe vaginal delivery. What is the most appropriate timing for de-infibulation in this patient? Is this a repeat question or is this a new question? Just a quick question. If looking at this question, is this a repeat question from RCOG or this is a new question from RCOG? Just one question. Yes. Content in module is sufficient. Oh, you are talking about our course? More than sufficient. We have done this question multiple times in our course, right? That is why I am asking every one of you. What do you feel? This question is a new question or the old question? Repeat question. Very good. Those who have attended the course, they know that this question has appeared multiple times, right? Just packed in a new way. Yes, repeat. Good. So what is the correct answer? Perform de-infibulation immediately, wait for full dilatation or the crowning to happen. These are the two options where usually people get confused. Defer de-infibulation until after delivery, C-section, and prenatal de-infibulation at 36 to 38, not done in this patient. De-infibulation only if there is obstructed labor, under general anesthesia, epidural, or what we need to do. So what is the correct answer here? What is the correct answer here? Yes, it's repeat. 5 students say that it's repeat. Yes, it is a repeat question. This has been coming for last so many years, just packed with a beautiful picture, with adding so many things, spices into it to making it more palatable. Yes, so what is the correct answer? Looking for the correct answer, right? I know many of you know the correct answer. So I think there is a bit of lag by the time you see the question, see the options and on the YouTube. So that's why I'm waiting for the answers to start coming. I know many of you know the answers. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. What is the correct answer to this? When to do de-infibulation? Right now in the first stage when the patient is in active labor, or you will wait for the crowning to happen? I know these are the two options where the students usually get confused. So what it is? Yes, correct. You can do this de-infibulation in the active stage of labor. Yes. So A is the correct answer. Yes, very good. The fastest finger first, Dr. Jaya. Yeah, I know you know this, right? So our students, they have done this multiple times. Yes, A. Yes, very good. Everybody knows. All the students know that. So yes, A is the correct answer. Many a times people are confused with the crowning. No, you don't need to wait till the crowning. You can do it as early as possible in the labor. Yeah, I just got that answer as B, but B is not the correct answer, right? A is the correct answer. That is what I am saying, that you need to have this concept. While we were teaching in the class, we had this concept that we discussed this, that you need to do it as early as possible in the labor. No need to wait for the crowning. So that's the correct answer. Now, coming to the second parameter, depth versus volume of content. Was the syllabus expanded or explored more deeply? January 26 insight. I want to know, when you are solving the paper, many of you are here who have attempted the paper. So January 2026 insight, what was that? Were the topics familiar? Were you felt like, yes, these were the topics which were told to us that they are important topics? Or there were many new topics? See, there may be 5 to 10 new topics, new questions in exam. I don't bother that. I always say that those who want to attempt 90% of the paper correctly with just 2 hours of daily time, they stay with me. Those who want to attempt 100% of paper and study 8 hours a day, then I'm not for you, right? I'm for those who just want to study 2-3 hours a day and can focus, go well with 90% of paper they know. Yes. So yes, it was familiar, right? Familiar. So topics were familiar. Topics were the same. There were no new topics, only largely maybe 1 or 2 here and there, maybe the new topics. So was the syllabus expanded or explored more deeply? It was explored more deeply. which again goes on to, yes, somebody also fed the unfamiliar topics as well. Okay, yes, I said that we had 10% unfamiliar topics, but if you feel that more than that was unfamiliar, then we have to go back and check on the topics which you read while going for the exam. So if you have done like whatever course or whatever way you have read, you need to go back and see, because the topics were largely same. Topics were largely same. Yes. So basically, how the topics were same, because so what happens when you try to read everything, you are jack of all trades and master of none, and that leads to the failure. But when you don't want to be the jack of all trades, but you want to master that 30% syllabus from which 90% questions are going to come, then mastery of the high yield areas leads to success. Because knowing everything will need like, oh my god, the hours of study, sit with this all and that, and very difficult. You take a long time, do it. So it is like, I would prefer passing the exam with a study of just 3 to 4 months and get 75%, 72%. I would be happy, rather than studying for 3 years and or 1 2 years, maybe 7 to 8 hours a day, and then getting 85%. So that's how it is. So instead of being the jack of all trades leading to failure, mastery of high yield areas leads to success. So once again, what is the lesson learned here? Lesson learned here is that repeat the same high yield areas. Go into the deep of those high yield areas. Don't go and pick up like this new has come, I should cover this also, this also. No, please stop, please pause and look at the high yield areas and do them repeatedly. You need to do them more intensively. So can I give it a score 1, or you want to score it differently? You can tell me. The same topics with more depth. Score 1 or 0 or many times reading modules. Yes, needs repeated reading. Very good. See, only those topics, but repeat, so that you do not miss anything out of it. Every word is just stuck with you. So again, the shorter the content, the more revisions you can give, the more you can retain. The longer the content it is, then it is very difficult. Like with the EMQ shorts, 5 minutes, 5 minutes short, you can revise it 50 times even. 5 minutes EMQ short having 10 questions in it. What can be the faster way of reading rather than this? In 5 minutes, you are going through 10 questions. What could be the shorter way of this? Nothing. There's no other shorter way. This is a shorter and a smarter way. EMQ shorts, you need to go them multiple times to learn all the deep depths of those EMQ points. What should be our mode of study? Mode of study should be again and again question solving, and then going back to check what are the points where you are missing on. That is the best way. So is this score 1 right, or anybody wants to change before I go on to the next? So here is the next question. Yes, sentences of the live sessions. Yes, that's the formulas actually we discuss. They are really the clear maths formulas. Like we used to have the algebra formulas, right? So these are your part 2 formulas. Just catch hold of those formulas and keep on practicing them in the applications. Yes, this content which you have on your website portal is what is enough. As I completely say that you have to be thorough with it rather than going and spreading wings onto the new things. Let me see, when you will do the smart study, many of your friends are just following the traditional methods. They will still go and read the long papers, long PDFs, and then you will feel like, oh my god, she is reading so much, she is reading things in detail. But that's what you need to learn here. It's not about more reading, it is about knowing what actually comes in exam. So Here comes the second question, which again brings the same insight. So 30-year-old woman, G2P1, presents at 12 weeks of gestation for routine antenatal care. She has a history of focal epilepsy and has been taking lamotrigine 200 milligram twice daily. Seizures are well controlled pre-pregnancy. No other medical problems are there. No family history of congenital anomalies. What happens in the examination? Normal general and systemic examination, blood pressure is 110/70, neurological examination is normal. Baseline lamotrigine serum levels low, normal for seizure control, and routine antenatal bloods are normal. Now, which of the following option is the most appropriate next step in the management of this patient? So much is given, but what is important? Yes, EMQ shots are wonderful. Thank you so much. I know that's really a very helpful thing. So just let's get back to this question. So what they have given you so much information. But what is important? What is important at this point of time? She is at 12 weeks and lamotrigine 200 milligrams she is taking daily, right? And this is the pre-pregnancy thing which she is taking. So now what to do? Now what to do? What are the options here is basically, oh, sorry. No. Oh, sorry. Yes. So what is this? The increased lamotrigine dose to maintain the therapeutic serum levels, switch to lamotrigine to levetiracetam, add high dose folic acid 5 milligram daily, continue lamotrigine at same dose, no changes required, add vitamin B12 supplementation, start valproate, stop lamotrigine and monitor seizures of medication and increase lamotrigine dose only if seizures recur. So what we are actually looking at this. Okay, everybody wants to go with the folic acid 5 milligram. What is the relation of lamotrigine with the pregnancy? Any relationship is there? Any relationship is there? Beautiful. Yes, Dr. Jaya, she got it. A. Yes. So there are two confusing options here. A and D, right? Lamotrigine dose needs to be increased in pregnancy because lamotrigine has an interaction with the estrogen, right? So it needs to be increased in pregnancy. Another thing is add high dose folic acid 5 milligram daily. But if you see the patient is already at 12 weeks, right? Patient is already at 12 weeks. The period when actually she needed maximum folic acid was first 12 weeks, right? That was the main time when the folic acid was required. That time is already over. They have given you a very smart question. Everybody knows that 5 milligram folic acid will be required, and you know that the lamotrigine problem is there. Lamotrigine and estrogen, this interaction is a very favorite topic of RCOG, and actually this is tested in part 1 exam also. Right, this is tested in relation to the OCPs in part 1 exam also. If the patient is on OCP and taking lamotrigine, what to do? She has higher chances of the fever, of the fits, right? So therefore, A and D. Now, so that you can choose between A and D, they gave you the scenario of 12 weeks, right? Smartly, they have put up the patient at 12 weeks so that you can differentiate between A and D. Because if they have given you the early pregnancy, both of these would have been true. But that's why they gave you A and D. So that now you know that folic acid part is largely for the first 3 months. And now the lamotrigine is the one which is going to be reflected. So A comes to the correct answer, right? Same concept, more in-depth thinking, more, and this will come when you practice questions. So the worksheets which are on your website, please, when you are answering those worksheets, keep a paper on a pen along with that. Lamotrigine does not need to be changed to levetiracetam because they both are safe. And if the patient is quite stabilized on lamotrigine, we don't have to shift her to levetiracetam. Now, here, basically, whenever you are solving the questions, keep a paper and pen ready. And when you pick up any answer, write here. Write here that why you picked this answer. So this will strengthen your concepts, because again and again RCG is going to test the same concept. If you are choosing any other answer, think 10 times. Look at the scenario, because they are going to test the same concept. Now fine, the same concept, same thing, but they added a distractor and you got distracted. So to prevent this distraction, what is the solution? Going through the worksheets repeatedly. Now, why it is important to go through the worksheets repeatedly? There are other ways of solving the questions as well. I can go through the book PDFs. I can go through the Telegram group question solving. I can discuss it with my friend. But in exam, what you are going to do? You will be sitting with your screen in front of it, and you are thinking of going by the other ways. How it will work? You have to run a marathon 10 kilometers, so you have to practice running, and you are going for a different way. Discussion with a friend is very good. You will remember important points, but it will not replace your worksheet practice. You want to do a Telegram group practice, you can make a group of 4 people, do the discussions, but that does not take, it should not take your time of worksheet practice. So worksheet practice is must, because that is the thing which you are going to do in exams. And then when you brainstorm and look at these things, then you exactly know that what is going to work in the exam. So it is again not about more reading, it is about repeated reading and paying attention to those points. Now, coming to the third, EMQs, truly harder or better framed? What do you say? Student Wales EMQs were more difficult. What is the reality? They were longer. As we saw in the last question, if I asked you directly, how does lamotrigine levels differ in pregnancy? You would have answered very beautifully. The levels go down and there are chances of more fits. Everybody knows the point. But when I added so much information to it, you lost the track. So EMQs were longer, not conceptually new. The concept was same. They just added more of information, required stepwise thinking. Now, what is the step in the last question which we just attempted? There was an information that lamotrigine is given and patient is at 12 weeks. So first thing is lamotrigine is given. So is it safe? Do I need to shift on to other medication? No, I don't need to shift on to other medication. Lamotrigine is fine. Now coming to next. Do I need to work on lamotrigine or shall I add folic acid? So here you need the information at what weeks I am looking at the question. So step-by-step approach. This comes when we discuss questions in live session. Do try to attend those live sessions, because in live sessions we break down these step-by-step approach. So if you are with us, do attempt the live sessions. Our live sessions are totally interactive and question-based, and we help you break down this step-by-step thinking. Anybody would like to comment on this 0, 1, 2? What is the score? Looking at this particular point, 0, 1, 2. So topics tested were same: ovarian masses, twin pregnancy complications, maternal infections. And the lesson learned here is difficulty came from integration and not new topics. There were no new points, no new topics, but you need to integrate the information in a step-by-step format. Are you trained for that in the course? Those who have read the previous 6 months, they can actually tell this. What time does the live sessions happen for our course? It is 8:30 p.m. India time and finishes by 11:15. Not very long, and recordings are uploaded on the website in next 24 hours. So yes, so EMQs were bigger, but not difficult. I will go with again score 1 here. SBS, new SBS were there. SBS tested application over recall. Distractors were more clinical. So basically, this question is about the vulval conditions, like vulval pictures and all that was there, right? So were these the new questions? No, they are always asked like that, right? But I'm actually not talking about the 10% new questions which might have appeared in the exam. They always appear, right? And as I said, I'm going to make you prepare for 90% of the questions. So SBS tested application over recall. So definitely, they gave you a picture, but then they gave you a complete scenario also. It was not a just picture and identify. That was not a spot diagnosis question, right? The questions had the complete clinical scenario. So if you have marked your keywords for those questions, then you, even without knowing what picture it is, you can still answer the questions. So SBS still from the core format, but they made it more clinical. Clinical nuances added and not the factual gaps. Again, I mark it as score 1. Now, this is images versus visual data. Very, very important. SGA questions comes every time. Everybody knows that SGA guideline is very, very important. And I think I have a very beautiful video of the SGA guideline. 8 minutes. Whole guideline finished in 8 minutes. That's where your time decreases with us. SGA guideline in 8 minutes, right? You just need to know only these things which are mentioned in that. So now, what is there? The SGA questions come repeatedly in exam. It's not a new topic, but this time instead of writing third centile or fourth centile, they gave you a growth chart. And now you have to figure out what centile it is and then answer accordingly. Right? So where to, how the growth chart was there, and you just have to figure out what is the centile and accordingly answer the question. So images replace the numbers, but concepts were again the same. Do you go with that or not? Yes or no? From where to give a pick of SBS? They are there in your worksheets. Picture questions are there already. You have the pictures also in your recall worksheets as well. Okay, so what do you say about it? The images replace the numbers and not concepts. Like a question about the urethral caruncle, urethral diverticulum, those topics are already covered, but there were pictures instead of that thing, that postmenopausal women with reddish mass behind the urethra because of estrogen deficiency. That is the urethral caruncle. We know that from our basic knowledge of the SBS, but then when it came with a picture, we were confused. But again, it was not a spot diagnosis. Remember, RCOG is not giving you a spot diagnosis, not just giving a picture and going with that. If you read the scenario and you know your keywords, you can still answer those questions. So, critical insight it, you cannot spot diagnose images. You are not required to spot diagnose the images. Never, never, never. But if you understand the concept behind them, then you can even pick from your theory explanation that what this picture is actually talking about. I will score this as 2 because some of you really find it difficult to handle those pictures here. So we need to talk more in terms of the pictures and the graphs. This is a learning point, right? Whenever we are going through like ulcer scenarios, vulva scenarios, so all this we need to have the more kind of a graphs, like as I said, growth charts, your urology graphs. So they need to be practiced more for the exam. And this is a real shift, scoring it as 2. Now, interpretation over identification. Interpretation, how to interpret the question. Change in framing. Earlier, they were just so simply asking, what is this? But now it is more about what does this mean clinically? Like CTG categorization, CTG questions were mostly what we have discussed in our labor module and the EMQ workshop. I got to know it from many of the students that exactly the questions were the same. The CTGs also were same, which we have discussed in the class. So people did not find them difficult. Growth charts, electrosurgery complications. So basically, it's the pattern evolution and there was no revolution. They did not make the complete change in the pattern and just done that revolution, but it was just a clinical evolution which happened over a period of the time. Yes. So here is the question. A 28-year-old primary gravida woman at 39 weeks of the gestation. This question is in like how to interpret and identify the correct points. Just go through this. 28-year-old primary gravida woman at 39 weeks of gestation presents in spontaneous labor. Her medical history is notable for asthma, for which she has been using inhaled salbutamol regularly. During pregnancy, she was prescribed oral prednisolone 20 milligram daily for an asthma exacerbation for 12 days, but this was stopped 3 weeks ago. She has no other comorbidities, is normotensive, and has had an uncomplicated antenatal course. Examination will be vital signs stable, no features of adrenal insufficiency, labor progressing normally. Which of the following is the most appropriate management regarding steroid cover during labor for this patient? So this was an exam question, right? So we all know that whenever patient is taking more than 5 milligram prednisolone for the long time, we need to replace it with the hydrocortisone. So what needs to be done in this particular scenario? Here patient took it for 12 days and then she stopped it 3 weeks before. What to do now? Do we need to give IV hydrocortisone 100 milligram at the onset of labor? 100 milligram IV hydrocortisone at the onset of labor and then 8 hours until delivery, no steroid supplementation is required, or you start the oral prednisolone, give oral hydrocortisone, give steroids if she develops hypotension or the shock, give stress dose of steroids for epidural analgesia and admit to ICU for preemptive steroid cover. What we need to do for this particular patient? Yes, waiting for the questions. Hydrocortisone needs to be given. Okay. What else? I'm looking for more answers. There are so many people around, more than 100 people are around. So I want to get so many answers. Like, what do you think? IV hydro, okay. What else? What else? What else? Because NICE guideline says that yes, if it is more than 5 milligram prednisolone, patient is taking continuously for the long duration, we need to give that. But my question is this patient taking the prednisolone from the long duration continuously? Is this patient taking hydrocortisone for a long duration continuously? That is why she needs replacement? What do you say? What do you say? Does she require that? No, she does not require that because she is not continuously taking it for the longer period. That was just for 12 days and she stopped it 3 weeks back. Already she has stopped. She's not dependent on steroids, right? She is not dependent on steroids. Why she needs replacement? She does not need replacement at all. That is what, see, you knew the simple principle, and I'm very sure you have read this principle that any patient who is on more than 5 milligram steroids for a longer period needs this. They have given you only 12 days, and then they have given you that 3 weeks she wasn't taking anything. She stopped it long back. Her body is not dependent on this steroid. Why would she need that? There is no steroid supplementation required. The same concept, but you needed to highlight this point here that she is not on a long-term steroids. Does it make sense to you? Does it make sense? Yes. Suppose asthma attack at the time of labor, so asthma will be managed. The asthma will be managed. There will be management of asthma. We are not giving it as a, see, this hydrocortisone which we replace, the prednisolone from the hydrocortisone is not for the asthma management. This hydrocortisone we give here to prevent the adrenal crisis which will occur at the time of labor because of the stress which is in the labor. So you need to understand. See, basic thinking, basic conceptual thinking is required here. Why this prednisolone is being replaced by the IV hydrocortisone? Because the patient, when you stop this, because you are giving the outside hydrocortisone, so patient's body is not making that. And because she is not making that, so adrenal crisis, you can get that kind of adrenal crisis. So now, but here the patient is not on a long-term steroid. That was only given at the time of exacerbation. Now she is fine. So her body is perfectly fine. That will respond. She does not have any Addison's disease. That is why she is not preparing the corticosteroids. That was just drug-induced. So nothing to be done. Yes, the same concept asked, right? Nothing new asked. That is why I am saying more you go on to the parallels, like long course. I will go on to the course where there will be multiple things taught. Are you teaching? Are you covering talks also? Are you covering this and that also? The exam is not wanting that. Exam is only asking you the repeated same points with more intensity. So fix your concentration on the important points and please do them repeatedly. Repetition of the themes and recalls. Repetition of themes and recalls. Does they repeat it? Carbon footprint question was repeated. Core obstetric scenarios were repeated. Important clarification recalls are useful, but recalls alone are not enough. That is why, what if she is on long term? They will go with the IV hydrocortisone, right? It is IV hydrocortisone. So recalls are useful. Recalls alone are not enough. Why just doing this? Why? What does this sentence mean? Recalls alone are not enough. Does this mean that I should go and search for new things? No. Recalls alone are not enough means the recall PDF which you find in the groups are not enough because they do not have the complete theory, complete story of those recalls. If you want to do these theories, we will be doing those in the last 2 months when we will be doing the revisions and you will be doing all this. Meanwhile, you all have recall worksheets on your website. Please do them simultaneously with your course and clarify your doubts, all your doubts in the group, and we all are answering already everybody's doubts. So please stay there focused. Okay, solve your recall worksheets. We will be solving them in the live sessions to tell you the complete theory of it, complete story of it from the all angles. So recalls are useful, but just going through the PDFs of the recalls are not enough. You need a guidance that somebody can just help you recognize the patterns in the recall. So exams reward the recognition and understanding. Never take an answer as it is. Never take the answer just because it is written there. Always go through always understand that particularly, right? So this is very important. So I give it a score of 0 to 1. Coming to the next question. 32-year-old woman presents to the emergency department with acute right lower abdominal pain for the past 12 hours. She reports associated nausea but no vomiting. She has regular menstrual cycles and her last menstrual period was 10 days ago. So 32 years old woman presents to the emergency department with acute right lower abdominal pain for the past 12 hours. She reported associated nausea but no vomiting, and she has a regular menstrual cycles and her last menstrual period was 10 days ago. On examination, temperature was 37.8, pulse was 88, abdominal examination, tenderness in the right iliac fossa with mild guarding. No palpable muscles, rousing signs is positive. Laboratory investigations, WBC is 12 into 10 to power 9, CRP is 35. Urine dipstick is normal. Transvaginal and abdominal ultrasound is performed. It shows a pedunculated subserosal fibroid and the anterior wall of uterus, and appendix appears normal, no free fluid or abscess. Ovaries and adnexia are normal. So the patient is taken to the operating theater with a provisional diagnosis of acute appendicitis. During the laparoscopy, you find the appendix is normal. No other pathology is there. But the pedunculated fibroid is noted incidentally and it seems inflamed as well. It seems have a angry look. What is the most appropriate next step in the management? Is this a new question or the old recall? Is this a new question or the old recall? I want to know that. Long scenario with a basic concept. So, is it a new question or the old recall? Yes. Anybody? Old recall or the new question? Before I show up options. What is the repeat? Yes, very good. Yes, that's a repeat question. See, a surgeon opened, pain for the acute abdomen and find that that the appendix was normal, but basically the angry looking subserosal fibroid is there. So we need to remove this or not. What to do this with? Proceed with appendicectomy, do not remove, abandon the procedure, just stop it. Perform a myomectomy, prescribe antibiotics and observe, convert to laparotomy, remove the appendix and perform myomectomy concurrently, obtain CT abdomen pelvis before deciding and admit for waiting with the serial abdominal scans. What to do here? Yes, it's an old recall. Everybody knows that. What is the correct answer? What is the correct answer? Yes, what is the correct answer? I'm just looking for the correct answer here. Yes, what needs to be done for here? Any answer? Yes, it's old recall. But I'm looking for the correct answer. B, do not remove the appendix. Very good, that's correct. You do not need to remove the appendix. You can just go ahead with, just close the abdomen. Do we need to remove this fibroid? Do we need to remove this fibroid? No, we do not need to remove the fibroids. Very good. Everybody knows that because fibroid is not an emergency and subserosal fibroid that can be managed simply with the analgesia. So again, a repeat question, right? Everything same. Questions are lengthy and the exam intensity is there. So paper 2 felt tougher due to long stems, more data to process. But as I told, it is not about more data. It is not about more data. It is about like choosing exactly what is required to answer the question, because everything given in the question is not important. You finally have to come to one line. Like if you have solved this question in the recalls, you know that if I see incidentally any fibroid, I don't have to do anything here. So you will not go by what is the pulse, what is the temperature, what amount is going on. Just you will see that the patient is stable, and incidentally there is appendix and the fibroid. Appendix is normal, so should I remove the fibroid or not? No, I don't need to remove the fibroid. Very clear. So that is why just it is. So time was manageable, cognitive load was there, but there is no syllabus. And this cognitive load, how this you can remove this? When you have practiced similar kind of questions repeatedly. When you have practiced similar kind of questions repeatedly. So again, my score is 1 for this as well. How to tackle a long question? Just pick up the pointers which you require to answer in exam, right? Which you require to answer in exam. You have to just pick up those pointers here. Rest all information you need to just need to you need to leave it. Okay, coming to next further question, right? So 46-year-old woman presents with the postcoital bleeding and offensive vaginal discharge. She has completed her family and has no significant medical comorbidities. On examination, speculum examination reveals a friable irregular growth involving the cervix extending to upper vagina. Bimanual examination shows restricted mobility of the cervix, but the pelvic side walls are not fixed. Punch biopsy confirms squamous cell carcinoma of the cervix. She undergoes further imaging. MRI pelvis shows a cervical tumor measuring 5.5 centimeter, extension into the parametrium, no involvement of the bladder or rectal mucosa, no pelvic or para-aortic lymphadenopathy. CT urogram demonstrates the unilateral hydronephrosis. There is no evidence of distant metastasis. What is the most appropriate stage or for this cervical cancer? Now, what do you say? So, what do you say now? Okay, looking for the answers, waiting for the answers. I know there is a slight lag between I ask the question and you all answer. So I'll just look and wait for the answers here. So extension is in the parametrium. There is no lymph node involved, but there is a unilateral hydronephrosis. So what needs to be done now? What is the stage now? That is the main thing which is asked here. Yes, correct. E is the correct answer, stage 3B. So even if there are no lymph nodes, there is only unilateral hydronephrosis. They have tried to confuse you by giving all this data. But you stick to that whenever the hydronephrosis is there, that means it is going up to the in the pelvic side wall, and that will make it stage 3B. So same classification asked with a long scenario. So long scenario, does this really makes a difference if you have this concept clear? Like in this case, you all had a very clear concept that whenever the hydronephrosis is there, irrespective of lymph node and everything, I'm going to choose stage 3B, right? This was their concept was there, right? Now, when this concept was there, even if they created a long scenario, they added more information, does that made a difference or does that confuse you? No, it did not confuse you because you knew exactly this is the correct thing. So similarly, if you know that this is the correct answer to this particular question, then no matter whatever information they add, you cannot go wrong. So it is very, very important. Again and again, I am emphasizing that you do your basics correctly. Your basics will make you pass. These new unique things here and there are multiple things, but they do not make you pass. The basic concepts will make you pass. So now you see with this question, I've kept this question just to explain you that this question, you knew the concept, hydronephrosis, stage 3B. So you did not get anyway distracted. So fix your pointers, fix your rules. If you want to fix your formulas for every EMQ, we do them in the live sessions. Please join in. And those who are already in the course, please repeat those live sessions multiple times and apply those formulas everywhere and make your life easy. What actually differentiated pass and fail? Before I finish off, what actually differentiated pass and fail? Was it reading more books, chasing every update, or it is the deeper understanding of the repeated topics? Core talk articles which are repeatedly asked. There are many talk articles which are although old but repeatedly asked in exam. So we need to go through those. Clinical reasonings. Why this? Like that asthma question. It is very clearly written that if the patient is taking for long duration, that is more than 3 weeks, then only we give her the replacement. But in that question, they gave you 12 days, which was not 3 weeks. So you do not need to give the replacement. So therefore, it is very important to know that complete reasoning. If you have if you had that concept that we are giving this because she is getting dependent on steroids, and if we do not give, she will be in stress, she will develop the adrenal crisis. Then in that case, you would have known that because she has stopped 3 weeks back, so she is not going to be there in the adrenal crisis. So that is why it is very important to have the clinical reasoning behind the answers. So please clarify all your reasonings behind it. Dig deep into it. Do not spread here and there. Whatever concepts are there, dig deep into it. The exam rewards the depth and not the breadth. How many of you agree with this? It stands true for every time, so I keep it score 0. What do you all say? Which are those talk articles which are very important? They are already covered in your videos. All the important talk articles are covered in your videos. Like cesarean scar ectopic talk already covered in your ectopic pregnancy video. Ureteric injury talk already covered in your ureteric injury things. Urethral diverticulum is already covered in your urogyne. So all these important talks are already covered. Okay, so I mark this as score 0. Do we need to read talk deeply? As I said, it is not about reading the whole guideline or the talk deeply. It is going through that particular point which is asked from that particular talk in deep. Okay, if you go by whole talk deeply, you will get mad and still will not remember anything in exam. Stick to those 5 lines which are being taught from that particular talk and go into those deeply. You cannot read all the talks. If you want to read, then again you are spreading your breadth. You are not going depth. Depth does not mean that you have to read the complete VT guideline, right? Depth means like when you are going through that VT chart. I actually wanted to put that one more question here, which is about the VT scoring. Instead of preterm birth, they give you the IOL at 36 weeks. And there was a confusion about it, whether you will take this as the preterm or not, right? So yes, any time patient delivers before 37 weeks, either spontaneously or iatrogenic will be preterm. So you need to be thorough with same. This preterm birth is written in that chart only. There is no separately, it is not written. It is about knowing that concept. What is preterm birth? Spontaneous or iatrogenic, both is the preterm. Preterm is preterm, whether the baby is born spontaneously or iatrogenic. So you need to just have the clear concept and not to go into the deeps of those guidelines, right? Just go through these important points. How many hours of videos are there? See, for every module, there are small 30 minutes video of the topics. Like for early pregnancy, there are 5 or 6 videos. So you can take as almost 3 to 4 hours of videos. So fertility also like 3 to 4 hours. This 3 to 4 hours videos will cover all the guidelines of those particular topic, plus all the talk articles of that particular topic or whatever sources are required for that particular topic. That is how we drastically reduce your study time from 8 hours to 30 minutes. And with most important thing is it gives you clarity. And it gives you so much concise information that you can repeatedly master them. That's what we are doing here. And our live sessions give you the extra clarity with those formulas, one-line pointers. We don't teach like guidelines in the live sessions. Our live sessions are not 5-6 hours. You just listen for 1 hour and get all the pointers of that particular module, and then you practice those in the questions in the live session, so that you know that what I've told is exactly working in the exam. Yes, VT questions need to be practiced, right? Correct. So what is this? Now, if I ask you finally, has the pattern actually changed? What is the cumulative interpretation? We have seen that very few were 2s. Most of them were 0 to 1. So can I take the final verdict as no fundamental pattern change? Presentation has evolved, right? They're adding some intricacies into it. Preparation strategy must mature. It is again, you need to focus on the same high yield topics, choose them and read them thoroughly. Because if you are reading a less content, you can be thorough with it. If you are reading more, you cannot be thorough with it. So final verdict from my side, I think you all can tell me in the chat box whether you agree or disagree. No fundamental pattern change, presentation has evolved, preparation strategy must mature. So no fundamental change, presentation is definitely more, and preparation strategy must mature as per the changes we see here. So if the pattern hasn't changed, why did January 26 felt so difficult? I would compare it as an example. Knowing the drug names is equal to managing a sick patient? No. Thank you, Dr. Nirmala, for putting up agree. Yes, I would like to hear from more people, right? So here is the example, like knowing drug names. If you know that there is a drug called paracetamol, is it equal to treating any patient with a fever? No, you need to know exactly what is happening in the fever. So similarly, knowing the guidelines does not apply them is not equal to applying them in MRCG questions. You need, if somebody is actually focusing you on those points, like these are the points from where the questions are asked, you take these points like this, understand like this, apply like this, then it becomes very easy. It is something I would put up like a meal is prepared for you and you just need to go and have that. So knowing guidelines is not equal to applying them in MRCG questions. So please stop saying that I need to go through the guidelines 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. No, this is wrong. This way does not work. You need to know only that 20% of the guideline from which the questions are asked. Rather, you go through that 20% 5 times rather than going through the 100% guideline. Yes, thank you. Agree. Thank you, Dr. Beena. So, yes, agree. Thank you. So, the message takeaway is exam is not testing more, the exam is testing deeper. So, it is again and again, the message is very clear, do not expand. So, what actually works for part 2? Depth over volume. It is not the volume. Shall I go and read all the talks? Shall I go and read all the SIPs? Go and do. You will be lost in the track. You will be lost because you will keep on reading them for first 4-5 months, and just 1 month before the exam you will be standing, oh my god, now what to revise, because revision is very important. So from the very beginning, focus on only the things which you are going to revise multiple times till the exam. Depth over volume, repetition over randomness. Don't go by the random things. Repeat what comes in exam. Application over memorization. Do not memorize. Know the formulas and apply them in the questions. Do the questions multiple times. That will help you absorb the concepts. It is not about mugging, it is about applications. That is why our live sessions are actually helping you apply those questions. Nobody takes the questions so much intensively in the live sessions because nobody wants to take those nuances of why this is correct, why this is correct. But when it is about the application over memorization, it does not. It makes wonders. Understanding over recalls. Just doing recalls is one thing. Understanding the recalls, that's why discussion of the recalls in the live session is the core part of our syllabus. And let me tell you, this revision part is not a separate course. It's a part of your course because I know that you need this to pass the exam. So everything is just a one step you take. Just take a decision to enter in the course and you get everything in one plate, at one place. The exam rewards the doctor who think like clinicians because they want you not to be the students, like paper pen, just remembering and marking up the guidelines. They don't want you to be like that. When you enter into practice, you will have all these kinds of patients around, right? So they want you to be a better clinicians and not to be the better students. So if you want structured depth, no more content, right? I'm not providing you more and more PDFs, more and more content. Focus on repeated high yield topics. Build the depth, not overload, because overload and depth cannot exist together. Learn how MRCOG tests knowledge, like you saw that lamotrigine question, right? The folic acid was not wrong, but what was required at that particular time was lamotrigine dosage. So learn how MRCOG tests. So catch hold the pulse of the RCOG examiners and prepare like the clinician, not a collector of notes. Not be a student as you were used to be a clinician. The notes and the recalls questions are very informative. Thank you so much. What is the key lesson? The MRCOG Part 2 exam hasn't suddenly become unfair or unpredictable. It simply wants you to be a better clinician. So it has just upgraded its clinical level. When your preparation matches that level, when you are thorough with those topics, the exam stops feeling difficult. That's what actually many of students just called me to say also, that yes, the exam was very much what we have discussed in the classes, and this time actually there are a few students who have already appeared multiple times for the other courses. They just called up and then said, the madam, no, I have never done the exam this way. It felt like, yes, I was just doing it very easily. I've never felt like that, right? I cannot take the names because everybody wanted like because the result is not out yet, but very soon with the result out, we are doing another webinar on 12th, and I'll certainly give you the list of those students as well. So just 3 more days for the pre-result offer. It is valid only till 10th February. So just go with that. You will get the full updated course, live sessions, mocks, EMQ shorts, all the support, everything you need for part 2 with a 70% less time, only 2 hours of daily study time, with focused study on high yield topics, the way RCOG wants from you, then this is the QR code and you can scan and just enter the course. And I'm pretty happy to see that so many people have joined and are interested to know about this. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. And just let me tell you, don't leave this offer here, because 3 more days, go ahead and gain it. And if you want to connect with me on the call, then this is my number, +91 941 510 8289. You can just take the screenshot of this particular thing so that you have my number, my email ID, my website address, mrcogcourses.com, and the QR code which you can scan and do the enrollment. If you want the that's UPI and all that things, then you can just contact me on the WhatsApp in this number. That's it, because there is a lot of scam on the Telegram, so I don't want to float that UPI there. But always see that whenever you are making any payment for us through any UPI code, it should have MRCOG courses written on it. MRCOG courses written on it. There is no other thing. Either it's Bhavna Kera or MRCOG courses, nothing else. So no XYZ name you should pay. So this QR code directly takes you to the website and you can actually enroll. Get in touch with me on my number. Thank you. Need your blessing for the July exam. I'm there for all my students. And we'll have a good celebration meet very soon. And after that, we are already actually started for the July exam. So I think everybody is on the track. Any question? Interesting session as usual. Thank you. This was a certain new concept because I was getting a lot of queries about it. So I thought, why not discuss it with everybody, right? So that was it. Anything else you want me to discuss for the next session, you can just leave your comment in the chat box below. And it is actually good to say that this whole, during the process, I think this webinar has gone for almost 1 hour and to 17 minutes. And the candidates have been increasing. There has never been a number gone down. So that shows that how important this topic was and how interesting that was. So any feedback for me, any comments, please write them in the chat section if you want, whatever next topic you want me to take. And you can just let me know that also. Next webinar we are going to do on 12th is for the what after results, right? What to learn from the results, how to go for the way forward. So that's it. Yes. Anything you want me to take up today? Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you. Okay, bye. So finish our session here and see you all in the course with more elaborate, not elaborate, but shortened, concise and in-depth learning. Okay, bye. Take care. Thank you. Want more EMQs? Yes. We have already like lot of EMQs discussions in the classes, but yes, I'll just go ahead with. I do some EMQ sessions on the YouTube as well, so I'll very soon plan with that as also. Okay, bye.